LinkedIn, we are going to fire up your Monday.
With Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
I am Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Over the next hour of this Master Connection series, we will take a deep dive into the different ways to connect and network effectively.
See us and hear us right now. So LinkedIn, we are on here. We're getting ready.
Hear from experts along with Steve Spiro, who went from being shy and introverted to the Master Connector.
All right, LinkedIn, you know what it is. We're on here and we're going to talk about accountability today. I'm really excited to get into this with Joe and Mario. I'm going to introduce Steve Spiro here and we're going to get this party started. Accountability is such a big deal, and I hope that you're incorporating accountability and ways to keep yourself accountable into your everyday life. We're going to talk about what a big deal it is today. Steve, introduce him, throw him live on the camera here now. Steve Spiro is our martial arts black belt and a master networker. He's moved from being a shy, introverted kid to the master connector he is today. Steve Spiro began his business career by starting an advertising company in NYC. He had an incredibly fulfilling career and experience in advertising and marketing, but eventually pivoted to the technology industry. Today, Steve is a business automation consultant with Quadient, where he helps companies streamline and automate how they communicate and connect with their customers, leveraging artificial intelligence with both hardware and software. Steve Spiro believes in the power of mentorship, growing oneself through self-development, and continuing to create meaningful connections through building a large network. Welcome to the stage, the Master Connector himself, Steve Spiro. Steve, you're on mute. Gotta get you off mute. There we go. We were just talking backstage about the mute button here.
All right, there we go. There we go. All right. Well, I appreciate that introduction, Cameron, and Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And appreciate Cameron, all that you do. You are amazing. I appreciate you being the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain here. So hey, Cameron and I really appreciate you tuning in. We're here every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We come at you with engaging content on how you too can be a Master Connector. During this Master Connection series each week, our goal is to bring and gather subject matter experts to impart their wisdom on us. Welcome to the show. I'm very blessed to have my co-host Cameron Toth. Cameron is the host and founder of Biz Dev Live. Cameron founded Toth Event Staffing in 2011. Toth Event Staffing is a hospitality company providing staff to caterers, cafeterias, and catering departments in Westchester, New York, and New York City. Biz Dev Live was founded in 2020 and is a weekly show that airs on multiple platforms, including right here on LinkedIn Live, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Biz Dev Live takes Cameron's entrepreneurship experience and combines it with his passion for helping young people and business-minded professionals. Cameron's mission in life is increasing access to education and opportunity for all people. So please bring back to the stage my man, my partner in crime, Mr. Cameron Toth.
Just want to say I'm so thankful for our audience that's checking in. Mama Spiro in here, Margot Waldy checking in and saying accountability partners are a must. I know we're gonna hear a lot about that today. I'm excited to get into the show. So thankful for our audience. So thankful for my family, including Steve Spiro, We've created our own family and community with this show, and incredibly grateful for it. And with that, I'm going to jump into introducing a couple members of our community here, Mario and Joe. I'm going to jump over to Joe right now. Here we go with Joe Rojas. Joe Rojas is on a mission to create a world where all entrepreneurs can thrive. He is passionate about business building and business builders. Founder and CEO of Red Sapiens, he has helped dozens of entrepreneurs create million-dollar businesses and then see explosive growth from there. A coach and a technology evangelist, he will help you design a business that will succeed for you and help you run it. He is always in your corner and always finding solutions. Joe is the author of How Entrepreneurs Thrive and has been a speaker at the Sage Summit and on PTI stages nationally. Please welcome to the show the cup of Joe you have been looking for, Joe Rojas.
Thank you, Cameron. That's very funny.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Good. I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to have this conversation. I think that accountability is the most underrated, most required thing to run an effective business. So I'm really looking forward to today's session, to hearing from Mario too.
Love it. And we got folks checking in. We got Silva White in the comments. Leslie Martinez, thanks for being here. We're going over to Mario. Mario.
Howdy.
Mareo McCracken is the Chief Revenue Officer at Move Medical, where he guides the sales, marketing, and customer success efforts. Outside of family, reading, food, travel, church service, and sports, driving organizational and individual growth are his passions. He loves finding and sharing meaning at the intersection of revenue, organizational health, and individual performance. The McCracken cometh. Please welcome to the show, Mareo McCracken.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's going to be a great conversation. So this is going to be good.
All right, we're jumping into it. Steve, I know, accountability is such a big deal. I know you're passionate about it. What made you discover accountability as a tool? And my guys, let me know in the comments who wants to jump in right away and next. But what made you discover accountability as a tool?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I want to, hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. Maybe, we'll have an opportunity to talk a little about what we're grateful for later in the show here. I'll leave that to you, Cameron, to orchestrate that. But yeah, but as far as, what made me think about this and do this, listen, I have a tendency to be very self-focused. And what happens is I found that when I was isolating and I was kind of focused on myself, I didn't get to do a lot of the things I knew I was going to do. I also found that without being accountable to somebody else and actually recording my information and what I was doing, I felt like I was doing a lot more than I really was. So I found that in working with a mentor, a coach, and having that accountability partner and has been tremendously effective for me. And so I figured the viewers could really benefit from that. And we've assembled some incredible people, Joe and Mario, and I know, Cameron, I know you're really an expert as it comes to that as well, where we could really share and add some value for people on the accountability, the topic of accountability. So I'm very, very excited about that and looking forward to what everyone has to say today.
I think in the private chat here, Mario's ready to show those boats in the water what the Kraken is cooking over there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think growing up in the situation, lots of us grew up in different situations, but my situation with my mom raising 6 kids by herself, we had to be accountable to each other. And that was just something that had to happen or the family couldn't function. I think the first example of accountability definitely was my mom taking accountability for her responsibilities, her job, what she had to do to take care of us 6 kids. And then the reverse on the other side, it was what did the 6 kids have to do to kind of make that family or help the family stay afloat. And so that's kind of the foundation of where I come from on that topic.
Oh, I love it. Joe, you want to jump in?
Sure. So for me, I think that I discovered accountability when I really, probably in the militaries where I discovered accountability. So when I first discovered accountability was when I got in my platoon and in my squad. And I had this other person that I was, so you have accountable. So the way the Army works is the buddy system, right? So you're accountable for this other person. And it was somebody I didn't know, but now I'm responsible for that person's results. And it was really tough for me in the beginning. And I was kind of mad about it. And then as I really got what it was to be accountable for somebody else's results and for somebody to be accountable for your results, and you really build that muscle in basic training, that accountability muscle where where you line up and you stand behind somebody and you see their thread is out and you fix it, or their hat is crooked and you fix it. And that's really, I think, where I first came into accountability.
Yeah, I think accountability for me, I've seen it both in my personal life when I'm how you show up when, other people are expecting you to be someplace versus when you don't really have anything on your calendar with anybody else, and how you show up. And there's just such a difference in that level of productivity that comes out of you. And then I see it with my children, right? I see, both sides of the accountability coin, because accountability doesn't work without passion, some sort of feeling that makes you feel like you want to show up. Because I can be like expecting something from my children. I'm their accountability partner, but unless they're really motivated, something in the brain is clicking. We're not getting anywhere with that. The accountability doesn't count for much. So I'm interested to get further into this discussion. How do you actually line those two things up? Because you can put things on your calendar, you can line up partners. I know we're going to talk about Joe's group where, if you're late, you're paying a price. And I just know that doesn't work for everybody, right? There's more to it than just the teeth piece of it, and it's a complicated lane that we're traveling in. I don't know if anyone wants to kind of jump in on the discovery piece of this, but
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, one of the things is that accountability is an outcrop or a function of integrity. Right. So if you're really going to talk about accountability, you can't do it without talking about integrity. Right. Because the things that you're talking about at their fundamental core are you doing what you said you were going to do or not? And if you're not doing what you said you were going to do, are you at least honoring your word? Are you at least being responsible for the fact that there's an impact on somebody over there that you said that you were going to do something and you're not doing it? So that's distinct from accountability. Accountability is a structure to manage integrity, right? But integrity has to be the fundamental tenet. So if you really want to have a powerful relationship or a powerful relationship to accountability, then I recommend that you do some research and really look at integrity and really see what it is and what it is for you and whether you have a good relationship with your word or not, right? Because Michael Jensen, who writes a lot on integrity, says that, a lot of people do an analysis on keeping their word when it comes time to keep it, but really the time to do that is when you give it. When you give your word, that's the time that you go, should I give my word to this or not? And that's kind of what integrity is. So that's what I'll say about that for now.
Hey, Joe, I really love that. That was really inspiring, actually, that the idea that integrity and accountability have to be based off each other, right? And I think even taking it a step further is before someone can have integrity about a certain topic or certain issue or certain action, they have to make a commitment to that first. So you can't hold someone accountable to something they never committed to do. And so I think if we help people make better, and even ourselves, we help ourselves make better commitments, we can help others make better commitments. And then that's when you can put integrity into it. And then you can then put in accountability on top of that.
I love that. Steve, I don't know if you want to
add. Yeah. And I love that this conversation is going in the direction of integrity, because I think that is so important, being a man or woman of their word. And the way I heard integrity described is, when you write the check, can you deposit it, right? Writing the check and what you say you're going to do, I
just wanted to capture some of the head nodding that was going on over here. It was good.
I remember hearing stories of, friends, even probably my family members that, wrote a check hoping and praying that the money would be in the funds. And some of the probably millennials, younger folks probably don't even know what we're talking about, because they don't even know what a checkbook is anymore. But so maybe not so relatable, probably relatable to the 35 and 40 year and older crowd here. But certainly they would write checks. Or I even heard a story, kind of crazy story, where, they couldn't afford the bill. So they actually wrote a check to the phone company, but sent it to the electric company and vice versa, knowing that they were like, oh, we got the wrong check. And then they send it back, and that bought them time to have enough money in the account to be able to do that. So we don't want to live our life that way. Let's say it like that, right? We want to be able to make sure that what we're going to commit to, that we're going to give a word to, we could actually live up to. instead of just, saying something. And, and it's interesting, and I've seen it around me, a lot of very close people to me. I'm not going to name names. I don't want to convict anybody, but a lot of people think that by saying something, it's just as good as doing it. No. You got to say it and you got to follow through with it. Just saying it, again, I won't convict somebody, but in my life, she'll have a tendency to say, I was going to do this, or, and that's not the same as doing it. I know that you had the intention, but anyway, so I love where this is going with integrity and accountability. I agree 100%, Joe.
And really the piece is, Steve, is, and I like what Mario said about commitment also, because that's key, right? But this piece is that integrity is not just doing what you said you were going to do, is being willing to bear the consequence for not doing what you said you were going to do. It's both of those things. And that if you could do that, then you have something, right? And so, and you see that all the time. You see somebody who will say something and they're not willing to bear the consequence. And then when the consequence comes, they're trying to, hide under the table. But if you can manage being able to say something and then being able to honor that word, whether you're going to keep it or not, then you earn a lot of respect by doing that. Because if you are not able to keep your word and you can do that really gets you to another level in being able to bring accountability to yourself and others.
That's a great point. I'll jump in here real quick here, and I appreciate that perspective, Joe. So I think Cameron, you said you have a question here, right? Which is, how do you keep yourself accountable, right?
Yes.
And I'll jump into that if we're ready for that.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the thing that and there's a lot of ways, and I'm sure everyone, Mario, Joe, you have perspective, Cameron, I'm sure, but I'll give one that is so simple, it's just like kind of ridiculous. And the one way that you can keep yourself accountable is put it on your calendar and pay attention to your calendar, right? I have so many people, and again, I'm going to talk about the younger generation. I don't want to sound like I'm, an old fart or anything, but, I remember the days where there was paper calendar. I remember the days when there was the Palm Pilot calendar. And then I moved into, there's almost no excuse today to not have a calendar because we have our devices that have calendars on it. Not only that, I remember the days where I used to have these Franklin Planner calendars that it typically sat on my desk. And if I'm walking around the office, I got to remember to look at my calendar for the next appointment time. Well, we got no excuses because these devices now, ring, they can alert or whatever to tell you that you have to do it. So I've used the calendar, and I continue to use the calendar, not only for appointments, because I think that's important, right? Making sure you're on time on appointments. I know Joe has a perspective on that one, but also for things that you said you were going to do. I put it on my calendar, and I use this phrase all the time. I live and die by the calendar. If it's in the calendar, it's getting done. If it's not in the calendar, it typically doesn't get done. In fact, if my wife says, hey, we're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and we have a shared calendar, I'm like, is it in the calendar? Because if it's in the calendar, I'll make sure it's done. If it's not, so one simple tool that we all could, Joe's so on this one. I want to hear what you have to say, Joe, too. But
no, I'm saying if it's not in the calendar, it's 50-50.
Yeah,
it may happen.
Yeah, but
I think it's big on the integrity thing too now, because sure. I have so little patience for somebody that says, "Oh, I forgot."
Yeah, that drives me nuts. And it's funny because I think I told a story in a blog about my niece who's now an adult. She's adulting really, really well. She's super responsible. But back then, I remember when I wanted to schedule a little get together with my niece, and we were trying to put some time in the calendar. She's like, I got to check with my mom and see what my calendar's like. I'm like, that seemed crazy to me. It's like, why wouldn't you know your own calendar? But yeah, she might have been 14 or 15, but still, right? So, and I think what happens is, and I found a lot of the 20-somethings go into their adult life with that same mentality, where somebody else is going to remind them about something. And it's why doctors are now sending text messages reminding you of appointments. It's become rampant because people aren't really allowing themselves to be accountable and put it in a calendar. It's something that you, as an adult, you should do, right? I mean, try to think about it. There's so much going on in our head. And I think there's a tendency for people who want to just kind of remember it all. It's just, we're bogged down already. We don't need more things to try to remember. So that's one
and
of
as
my.
you're saying this, I'm thinking about my kids and their schedules. And, Martine, my 10-year-old, I just signed him up for a volleyball class before school. And he was like, what's going on with the volleyball? And I'm like, a moment of panic. And I'm like, was today the first day? No, tomorrow's the first day. I'm like, Martine, you got to you have to have it on your calendar. You got to tell me. I can't be, you got to let me know what's going on versus me controlling everybody else's calendar with the 4 kids, my wife. It's too much. Everybody's got to own their lane, right? Mary, I know you wanted to jump in, and then Joe.
No, I love that. Yeah. When you care about something, you kind of make sure you get it done. So the more things that are on your calendar, it's hard to prioritize, right? It's hard to say, hey, I care about this and I care about this, because you only can really, really care about so many things. And so the calendaring really helps. And then even taking it a step further, when you chunk your calendar, so then every Monday from, let's say, 9 a.m. to noon, you do a certain activity, then it becomes a habit where this type of activity happens all the time at this certain time, so I can do it and make it easier. But one of the things that the calendaring is like the action and the doing part. But one of the things that helps get the mindset right is, and I know lots of people talk about accountability partners or accountability groups, but what really inspired me to start doing it on a real full-time basis was there's a group that is very famous in literature called the Inklings. And that's C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, Charles Williams, and Owen Barfield. At the time, they were the foremost kind of popular writers in England, in the UK. And they would meet together every Thursday night and play pool at, so I think it was called an Eagle Club or the Rabbit Room or something in the Eagle Club. And they would play pool every Thursday night. But J.R. Tolkien said the only reason the Lord of the Rings ever got written was because on Wednesday nights, I knew the next day I would have to answer to C.S. Lewis of how my book was coming. And so he would write entire chapters or another chapter on a Wednesday night. So that way, Thursday night, when he went to play pool with C.S. Lewis, he could tell him he accomplished something. So it was a forced accountability partner that had really nothing to do with his ulterior.
Let me just say this, because I love this story. I haven't heard it before myself, so I'm glad to hear it. But I think we often think of these great names, right? If anybody knows Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, that's the guy that wrote the Lord of the Rings trilogy that years later has made, bajillions of dollars on the big screen. We often think of these names that are tied to these things as people that are of spectacular talent, just titans of industry, and, above it all, accountability. Each week we got together and I was accountable to somebody, not to make this show more important than what it is, but this idea of you can do it. You just need to build the tools into your life. I love it, Mario. Keep going.
Well, no, that was good. That was a great summary of what I was trying to say. So that was perfect.
All right, Joe, I know you wanted to jump in.
Well, to everyone's point, really, is having an accountability group, buddy, person. I always have a coach, no matter what. I always have a coach, and I always work with a coach, because I know that left to my own devices, I'm no good. I'm going to watch TV. That's what I like to do. So I have to make sure that there's somebody that I'm accountable to. And inside of our own organization, we have a lot of accountability structure to make sure that we're accountable to each other inside of the organization. But one of the things that I like that Steve was talking about before is about the calendar, right? So somebody asked, well, how do you hold yourself accountable? Well, you have to think of it this way. It's future you telling you, present you, what to do, right? So it's future you that's going to tell present you what to do. The thing is, you can't remember it all. So where is your word when it comes time to keep it? At the time that it comes. See, one of the things that Mario said that is really key to this whole thing is that we all have the same amount of time. We all have the same finite amount of time. And that time can only be occupied by one or two things, right? So if that's the way it's going to be, then you have to manage where your word is physically when it comes time to keep it. And that's your calendar. That's the place where you're going to look to so that you can hold yourself to that standard. And if you can do that, then it changes the game. It really does. And a lot of people, when they look at my calendar, they get overwhelmed because my calendar is like, right? And they go, oh my God. I go, everything's on there. So I'm never worried because I always know exactly what I'm doing next, you know, and I don't even manage it anymore. You go ahead, Cameron. Cameron,
I was going to say that I don't know if it's Elon Musk or somebody else that has their calendar down to like every 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Is your calendar that way? Every 5 minutes, you got
it's pretty close. It's probably in 15-minute chunks, and when you look at it, it's a little much. You know, it can be overwhelming when you look. It's color coded, so it's like this splash of color and stuff. But I could go out 6 months and tell you what I'm doing. You know, on June 3rd. I know what I'm doing on June 6th, you know, it's my anniversary, but I can tell you what I'm doing on June 3rd, and I can tell you what I'm doing for that whole day pretty much, because my days are pretty routine. So, but if anybody's added a calendar, I mean, I know when I talked to Steve Spiro the first time, the coordination that it took between my assistant and his calendar and my calendar, we schedule something for 2 months out. I'm not going to remember that I have a conversation with Steve in 2 months. I have 25, 30 conversations a day. I'm not going to remember that. But when it's on my calendar, I don't have to worry about it. And I can honor my word and I can keep my word. So, and that's really the whole thing. If you want to hold yourself accountable, you have to put in the structure that lets you hold yourself accountable. It's not just the one thing to hold yourself accountable. Yeah, I have a calendar and a team, and
I think this is a great segue, right?
A coach and all that.
I think this is a great segue. You're talking about the calendar. You've talked about an assistant, which I think as people are getting, you know, into their businesses, even in the personal life, I think some of the most successful people that I know that aren't in a job, you know, you think about somebody that's leading a life as, you know, in the nonprofit world, they have somebody that helps them and assists them. This is one of those things. This is a hack, right? This is a way to make yourself more productive. What are some accountability hacks you suggest for other people? I don't know who wants to jump in first on that. I know Joe was just talking. Yeah, Joe was just talking about.
You guys go, because I talked to him.
So it's kind of a hack, but it's more of a mindset where if you have an ultimate purpose, then you can align your objective with your purpose, and then your goals can be aligned to that objective, and then your daily actions can be aligned to those goals. Whereas if you don't have an ultimate purpose, then the goals you set might change, or they might not be aligned to anything. So then it's kind of hard to prioritize. And when it's hard to prioritize, then it's hard to stay committed to something. If it's hard to stay committed, how do you have integrity toward what you said you're going to do if deep down you don't really feel committed to it, or you don't really feel like, hey, I really want to do that, right? So I think knowing what your ultimate purpose is then sets the stage for everything else to make everything else easier. And so it's not really a hack, but it's a mindset. So that way, then when you do apply the hacks, they start to work.
I want to take a moment here to address the audience. If you guys are struggling with one of these pieces to the puzzle and you're looking for a tip or a trick or strategy to help you be more accountable, this is what this show is for. And your question helps this content be a lot more relevant. So get that question into the comments. We'll be happy to tackle it. I think, you know, for me, you know, just in terms of accountability, you know, what sort of was mentioned, having an accountability partner, building that into your lifestyle is a big, big deal. So if you can find somebody that you don't even know, I mean, I know over the pandemic, I kind of luckily bumped into Keisha King, and, you know, where I might not have had the courage before, I built up the courage. I say, hey, can you be my accountability partner? Because I saw something in her that was good. She wasn't my next door neighbor. She was somebody that I felt would be good to kind of keep me beholden to it. So if you know somebody like that, ask them to be an accountability partner. Worst thing you can say is no, right? Go ahead, Joe. I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
So two things. One, make it cost money. That always works, right? So donate $100 to charity every time that you break your accountability. So have an accountability buddy, yes, and then make it hurt, right? And two, is really oh gosh, I had it right there.
We're sending it to give it to you.
Yeah. Hold on. So tell me the question again, because I want to make. Oh, what are accountability hacks? So one of the hacks for me, the one that I've been able to use with the most success, is delegation. Delegate, delegate, delegate. Delegation is not giving something to somebody else that you're going to manage. Delegation is giving them something that they now become accountable for, and it opens up time for you. And so the more you can delegate, the more you can be accountable for, because you're accountable for the ultimate result. But as you delegate things out and hold other people accountable, that makes you a better at accountability as you start to hold others accountable. So delegate, delegate, delegate. That's my number one hack.
Love it.
Love that.
Love it. Steve, you want to jump in here?
Sure. Yeah. And then Mario and Joe, great points, obviously, as well. So one thing that I could recommend for the viewers is, a group text or a some kind of group on social media, like a Facebook group. I'm not big on that, but having a group text where, you are posting, what you're doing, what you've committed to, and people are posting it, so that there's, not only is it accountability for yourself, but there's also other people kind of watching it. So I find that, and I have that, and I've been doing that for at least 2 years, where I post and there's a little adrenaline hit, to be honest, a little endorphin hit that I get when I get to post it. So it actually makes me feel good. I get addicted to wanting to be accountable. Okay. Another thing that I do with accountability coach is I use Google Sheets, and I've created a tracker, and the tracker allows me to kind of be accountable to myself, to my accountability coach, who happens to be my mentor. And he's able to see what I'm doing, what I'm not doing. And so besides the accountability of did you do it or not, in that there's statistics that you can actually start to build. And what I like about the calendar that Joe talked about, and we all did, is sometimes you want to look back and maybe you forgot to record something in that tracking device. Well, you could go back. If everything is in your calendar, you can go back and see, okay, that was there and that number needs to go in there, or whatever it is, right? So all these tools, right? And they're simple, right? Google Sheets is a free tool. And you could share, I don't know if you guys do that, probably most of you guys did, especially you 25, 30-year and younger people. Google Sheets is great. It's like Excel, but it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about having the program. Sorry, Bill Gates and company, but yeah, it's a way that you can actually share it with somebody and they could see real time when you're updating that document. It's pretty cool. And of course, there's other ones like Google Docs and so forth and so on. But it's a great tool for accountability, and I found it really good in that respect. So calendar for accountability, tracking, as well as also this Google tracker that you can actually now utilize to make sure you keep yourself on track and also create some statistics.
And I think that's a great segue to ask the audience, what do you use to track your success? So if you're watching this, and if you're watching this on the replay, by the way, hit that hashtag replay. I'd love to know if you're watching this not live, but if you're live right now, we want to know, what are you using to track your success? Are you watching your numbers? Are you meeting with somebody, having that weekly meeting like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien? What are you using to track your success? Are you in a group like Joe's Thrivers 360? What are you doing to track your success? Because that's a big deal to hold yourself accountable. I'm going to go back here into the comments. Joe, go ahead.
So the other thing, just to kind of drive home what Steve just said, is have a whiteboard with my KPIs for this month. Right. So one good way to hold yourself accountable is to have a visible scoreboard that I can turn my head over there and I can see, okay, well, these are my KPIs for this month. This is what I'm accountable for. This is what I need to produce. So I can actually track those KPIs. You'd be surprised how useful it is to just look at that every once in a while and go, and if there's something else that you need to put on there, like I have a little sign underneath that says master the monotonous, and another one that says no squirrels, right? So I have to stay focused because I'm that guy, from up. It's like squirrel, and I'm
Squirrel.
gone. So those two things will help you stay on track and really, so those are good hacks to really keep you focused.
And we have a question for you from Terry. Joe, question: when do you delegate, and how do you trust it will get done properly?
Excellent. So, and this is great. We're actually having a webinar about this tomorrow. But one of the things is really to go through the 4 stages of delegation. And what I'll do is I'll send you a link that you could drop in the chat that has a whole write up on the 4 stages of delegation. Is one of our blog posts. But you need to be able to first train people, right? So you can't just delegate right out of the gate. So you have to first manage, and then you have to build the processes. And then you build the processes and you manage. And then what you do is you move from managing somebody to giving them over, right? What are the results that need to get produced? And now you're waiting to get back the results from them. And when you're not, then you go back and train, right? And then delegation is a process. And it'll take you, if you're really going to delegate something fully, it's going to take you about 4 to 6 months to be able to delegate something fully to somebody where they're completely accountable for it. Because that's the whole point of delegation. So how you trust that it's going to be done properly is you train, test, tweak, and tune, right? So if you do those things, then you can go back and say, okay, yep, this is not done right. Let's see what was missing so that we can put that in so that can get done right next time. And then you test again. But you have to keep trusting that person, and they have to be competent. If you keep training somebody, they keep coming back with the same broken result, they're just not competent. So, or they're the wrong person for that job. So maybe you don't delegate that to them, but you have to figure out what their competency level is also. So those are the things that we see. And then we'll I'll give you something so you have the whole 4 stages of delegation.
Love that. And now Steve wants to jump in. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, Joe, great point. I'm really glad you brought this piece of it up. And I'm glad, Terry, that was a great question. I think as solopreneurs, as entrepreneurs, we are notorious for wanting to do it right, do it ourselves. Nobody does it better than us, right? It may have been my grandfather said something years ago. If you want to do something done right, do it yourself, right? And that was the phrase that we heard for years and years, right? And so what I've learned over time is to delegate, you have to lower expectations a little bit, right? I heard it said that 80% of what you're expecting to get done is acceptable, but don't forget there's going to be learning in that process. And also, here's the other thing: maybe the way that you were expecting it to get done and the way you think it's the best maybe isn't always the best way. Maybe somebody else doing it, there's a perspective that they could be doing that actually is more effective than you were doing it. So giving latitude, giving people the opportunity to fail a little bit, fail forward, and learn from that experience, and not making them feel like, oh man, I can't make a mistake. I remember, Cameron knows I read the book multiple times, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and I had, I finally was in a position again in my business career where I had some people that that were reporting to me and I was managing. And I remember this young lady who was afraid to make a mistake. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Go ahead and make a mistake. If you do make a mistake, it's okay. We'll learn from it. And she was like shocked because there's this feeling like if you only, you can only do something and it has to be done right and perfectly. And that is I believe that's a flaw, and that's a flaw that often comes from that old school mentality, right? Learn as you learn from your mistakes. You learn as you do, and you get better each time. As long as you're always looking to strive for perfection, not looking for perfection, right? Always looking to get better. So that's what I wanted to share.
I love that. And I think, one of the things that you get to know, and I love Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this, is that, your staff doesn't work for you. And it can feel really strange if you hire an assistant and so part of that conversation is you work for the assistant. But when you flip this whole thing on your head, it's like, how can I set this up, right? If we're going to like a volleyball analogy, if I want this person to spike this, I want them to get this 100% right, how do I set it so that it's easy for them to get the job done? What expectations am I putting in place? How am I training them? Lynn Rowe, who we both know, Steve, very well, she talks about, there's so many tools. You could do Loom video where you just sort of talk through it. There's so many different ways to set things up, and documenting. You suggested when we first met the E-Myth by Michael Gruber, documenting how you do things so that you can get it out of your head, because people cannot read your mind. So if you're expecting people to do exactly what you want them to do, exactly the way that you do it, guess what?
Ain't happening.
Love it.
All yeah, right. For sure. And I really loved all the comments about delegation, of course. And then you have to build that trust. And you have to change those expectations, and you have to set them up for success. Those are all really important for creating that accountability so you can delegate. One final note on that is what I've learned is that the reason you might be in a leadership position is because you have that vision that can help get to the right spot. And so the outcome is something you need to really stick by. But when you're delegating, the process of how to get there, the people you're delegating to often, and what I've learned, especially in the teams I've worked with, is the people that I work with often have a better way to get it done. And this was kind of mentioned before, but what I've learned is as long as you stick to the end outcome, how they get there can be very, very flexible. And that allows everybody to have more creativity. And if they're allowed to be creative, they're more willing to commit to it. They're more willing to keep their word because they're allowed to show who they really are rather than being stuck to a way that the exact way you tell them to do it. Whereas if you just give them, hey, this is the exact outcome we need, you figure out how to get there, everybody's a much more willing participant.
Yeah, that's really
great. What do I care how you do it if you get the final outcome, which I think is a very smart way of doing business. Joe, I know you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's really it. That's the end of the delegation, the 4 stages of delegation, right? So first you assign the task, but you keep the decision making to yourself. Second, you assign the responsibility to the decision, but keep the responsibility for the results. Third, you allow the person to determine the results, but they don't own the outcome. You still own the outcome. And then finally, they own the outcome, right? So you say, here's the outcome that we're trying to produce. Now you own the outcome. So back to your point, Cameron, is like, you don't care how they do it as long as they get it done. And as long as it gets done within the confines of just to tie back to what Mario said before, within the confines of the vision and the values and the integrity of the company, as long as it's tied into that, then you don't care how it gets done, just that it gets done. But you have to move from the decision making all the way to the person owning the outcome, and those are the stages of delegation. You go through them, and the better trained they are, the better they are at the outcome.
Love it. And we got some great comments here. And Gabe Leal jumping in. I track my success by the environment around me. It's an interesting one, Gabe. I want a little bit more detail on that, because there's a lot of ways you could go by that. But I love where you're going with that. And Leslie says, I use huge Post-it notes placed on a wall with my KPIs. At the end of the day, I will put a tick mark on the KPIs that I accomplished. I tally up at the end of the quarter. I love that, Leslie. That might be something I incorporate myself. I like that a lot. Putting the tick mark on there, that's a game changer. So you can see where you're placing your time and what you're getting done. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So what are the pitfalls of accountability? Where are the traps that we sort of see this where, I think with every kind of productivity hack, there's some places where people go off the rails and they're being accountable, but maybe they're not headed in the right direction, right? Go ahead, Mario.
I think one of the big pitfalls is the friendship trap, for sure, where you develop that relationship with someone and then holding them accountable might be hard. I know holding yourself accountable is hard, and you don't want to, and getting rid of blame and those kind of things is very important on both sides. But when you're leading someone else and holding them accountable, that's something that could be very difficult, is holding someone accountable, because there has to be consequences. And sometimes you don't want to have to enforce those consequences. And so that's a trap that has to be decided upon and agreed upon beforehand. So that way you don't feel like the bad person and they don't see you as the bad person. It's just more of, this is the result that was promised based on both sides agreeing to it.
I'd love to know too, in the audience, if you have an accountability partner, can you just let us know, yes, I have an accountability. No, I don't have an accountability partner. Love to hear your responses. If you're doing this on the replay, we want to hear from you. Just very interesting. I know for, the first 30 something years of my life, wasn't even a thought in my mind to have an accountability partner. And suddenly I feel like it's something that I have to have. I got to have accountability partners, right? It's something that is vital for me. So just kind of curious where people are, and if you've tried it and you've decided against it. Like, I'd love to see where people are on that map. I'd love to hear from you. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, now, and Mara, you bring up a great point, and I think there's two sides to accountability, right? There's the side, the personal side, right? If you have friendships, you have relationships, people being on time, for if you're going to grab coffee or going lunch, right? There's that piece of it. There's the if you say you're going to speak to somebody at a certain time on a certain evening, and you want to call at that time, right? Things of that nature. There's that piece of it for accountability, just basic ethics and morals and integrity, like Joe, you brought up, in terms of accountability. And then there's the business side of things, where it gets into even more nitty gritty, where you're holding somebody accountable for what their goals are. And I think that really is someone more of a coach type person, or a leader type person, that you're going to allow them to speak into your life. And the pitfall, I think, that I see is, you can't mix the two. You have to decide, number one, which relationship do you have here, right? Is this more of a friendship, or is this a business relationship, accountability relationship? And don't mix the two. And then the other piece of it is that you don't want to be too mechanical, right? Mario, you alluded to this. I think sometimes people, number one, we get very task driven. I'm guilty. I'm probably the, in the DISC, the DISC personality, I'm very task driven. So we have a tendency to be very task driven and lose the relational, the people side of things, right? So that's a pitfall, I think, of being too accountable. And then the other side of it is that, you don't want to be too, I just lost my train of thought. When you zoomed out, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say on it. But that's to me, you don't want to lose the relational side of things. And again, I think if you separate the two, and you give somebody permission to speak into your life, and they know what your goals are, then and again, I want to just reiterate, I think what Joe said, which is or maybe Mary, you said it, don't expect other people to be accountable unless they've asked you to make them accountable, right? You got to be you are the best.
That was Mario. He said they have to be committed. If they're not committed, don't. Yeah. I thought that was brilliant.
It is, and you can't expect something of other people unless they've asked you to, that specifically for that accountability piece.
I want to shout out Angela Hill here. She says, yes, I do, in terms of the accountability partner question, but I haven't given them anything lately to hold me accountable. I must do. And I remember this really well from being like in the midway journey of an accountability partner, right? In the beginning, like, you start with a specific goal in mind. And as you're going through, okay, now you might have gotten over that. So what are they holding me accountable to next? And so you can get into these kind of friendly conversations. Mario was saying, like, the friend kind of thing. All right, we're just friends, but it wasn't like that real critical. And I find that's it really.
What do you think? What do you think causes that, Cameron?
Complacency. I think.
But why do you get complacent?
I think there's a lot of different reasons. Fear.
The number one reason why you get complacent.
Probably fear.
No. I wish it was, because it'd be easier to address. The number one reason why you get complacent is because you don't plan. So there's nothing to be held accountable for, because you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
See,
but I feel like that
I go out there in the future and say, these are the things that I have to get done. And now you can give that accountability to somebody. See, so the number one pitfall that I see in this deal with accountability is that people do not plan. Right. So
let me see if I'm getting
1 year out. Go ahead.
What you're putting down, right? So for Angela here, right? What she should do and what I should do is, here's my 10-year plan. Hand that over to my accountability partner. Keep me accountable to this.
See, your accountability buddy can't think in those terms. what you have to do is you have to think of these are the outcomes that I want to produce in 10 years. And you got to keep them kind of nebulous because it's 10 years. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Then there's 5 years. You got to keep that kind of nebulous. But the next year, you got to get really tight. In the next 90 days, you got to get super tight. In the next 30 days, you got to know what's happening. You really got to know what's happening. And that's what you give your accountability buddy. And you have them hold you accountable for that. And then you get that 30 done. Then the next 30, you know what has to happen. Whatever didn't happen here, you got to carry it over. And then you have to plan the next 30 based on the 90 that you planned. But you only give your accountability that 30, and then they're holding you accountable, but you've planned. And the biggest pitfall that I see is that people don't plan.
Yeah.
So it falls apart because now you're having this conversation about nothing really. Cause you like you said,
let me say, I resemble that remark. So,
right. So number
keep myself
two,
accountable there. Yeah. I said I resemble that remark, so I keep myself accountable there. I appreciate it.
Right. So the other thing, the second thing that will have you not be accountable is that you oh man, I lost it. It's gonna come back to me. Every time the screen zooms in,
just gotta keep it static.
But there's what was the last thing I said? Because now I'm all lost. So you're not planning, and so you're not going to get that return, right? And it'll come back to me. When it comes back to me, I'll
I know Steve wanted to jump in. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, I'm loving this. And Joe, you were starting to allude to something where you're bringing it down to 30 days. And I just read a great book, The One Thing by Gary W. Keller and Jay Papasan, and great book on kind of shaving down, if you could do one thing that is going to make everything else easier, or it's all you need to do, what is that one thing? And that is a lot easier to keep yourself accountable to, have somebody to keep accountable to, because that's the one thing that would drive your business, right? In the sales world, it's probably making those reach outs, right? It's the calls, the emails, the LinkedIn messages, right? Though that's the one thing that you're going to do, because that feeds everything, right? So you bringing it down to that one thing is super crucial, because I think some of us, I'm probably one of those guys, where we could get so overwhelmed with all the things. And I know our viewers, I got to believe, could be hearing this conversation like, wow, this is great, but I feel completely overwhelmed by it. Come up with the one thing, and then have somebody hold you accountable for it. Ask them their permission. Would you hold me accountable? And like to Joe's point, you can't dump that on a coach or a mentor or whatever on your huge big picture, but you can give them, here's what I want to be held accountable for in this month, in the month of whatever. So I agree with you, Joe. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Which reminded me of the second thing that I was thinking about, right? Which is that we take on too much. That's the other pitfall of accountability, is that we say, oh, these are the 10 things that I'm going to do this week. Right. Or it's Wednesday. It's like, by Friday, I'll have these 9 things done. And the more things you pile in like that, the less effective you are.
The multitasking pitfall. Absolutely.
There's no such thing. No such animal as multitasking. You're one tasking. That's all you're one tasking very slowly. No such animal as multitasking. Unless you're a mom. You're a mom, but for us, there's no such animal as multitasking.
Well, if you're tasked, I mean, there's certain things that you don't have a choice, right? There's to drive and deal with people in the car. There's times that you're just forced to do it, right? We're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure that we have some time. I want to address Gabe in the comments. If I find myself surrounded with the kind of people who align with my values, both in business and in life, then I can see how much I have progressed. The mindset for me personally plays a big part of what I measure as being successfully. I don't equate money and success. I equate my success with fulfillment. Love
Awesome.
that. Maybe I am wrong. That is how I can relate to using measurables to track my own success. No, we love it, Gabe. I think that definitely illuminates your other comment about environment. I do have an accountability partner that does a fabulous job of helping me keep focus, recalibrate, and reevaluate my efforts and direction. I think that outside perspective is always incredibly valuable. Chris Januski might have been addressed earlier. What's the easiest way to find an accountability partner? I know for my part, ask. What's the worst thing that find somebody that you respect, admire, think will hold your nose to the grindstone and ask. Who else wants to jump into this?
Sure. Just come here.com and come to 2 sessions. It's real easy. Thrivers360.com and then come to 2 sessions, Chris. And so just go to that website and then sign up, and then we'll find you an accountability buddy. That's easy. You asked me that question. I always have an answer.
Steve, Mario, you guys want to jump into the accountability partner thing? We know we're going to go to the Thrivers 360. Is there other tips?
Well, Thrivers 360 sounds pretty awesome, actually. But for me, what I've done in the past is I find someone who I really respect and admire who's in a similar situation that I'm in. So we're not necessarily what you could call competitors, right? Where we're not at the same company vying for the same positions, or we're not necessarily trying to accomplish the same thing, so we can have an outside perspective with each other. And so it's someone you respect and admire that's in a similar position you are, whether it's professionally or personally, depending on the type of accountability partner you need. And then you talk to them, and then being a co-accountability partner, I think, helps both sides. So it's a give relationship rather than a give and take relationship.
Love that. We love the go-giver attitude, right? We love that a lot. I love Leslie's comment. She says, this conversation has nudged me to find an accountability partner. She'll write this into a 2022 plan. Love that, Leslie. Thank you for that. And Gabe's got a book recommendation here, 12-Week Year, which I think we might have talked about this before on the show, Steve. No, the 12-week year?
Somebody probably has mentioned it. Yeah. But I just want to touch on the multitasking aspect of things a little bit real quick, and just take a little bit of a detour for a second on that. And listen, we all have multiple aspects of our life. We have, I'm sure, like I do, health goals, maybe some spiritual goals. We have professional business goals. We have relational goals, right? There's those are at least 5. And if you have hobbies, there's maybe that as well. So we all know how to multitask, but we're doing it, like Joe said, one at a time. And I think we get a little bit confused sometimes. And I've been there, where we lose focus. And I think there's a misnomer where, we hear different 2 sides of the story, right? We hear people say, you're only going to be successful if you're laser focused. That's true, but I'm going to give you a different spin on it. And then you hear guys like, Warren Buffett, who says you need 7 streams of income to be successful. So where do you go, right? What's the deal? Well, my feeling is if you need to be laser focused to be successful, that means you get rid of going to the gym, get rid of your relationships, don't have kids, just stay focused on your career, and that's it. You can't, right? That's not practical. But you can be very focused while you blocked out, I think you said this, Joe, block out time for that particular, right? So in the morning, I have my morning routine, which includes working out. So I get my fitness goal. That's done, right? I'm not thinking about it in the middle of the day. I'm thinking about it then. So don't get hung up on, you can't do a lot of things. This whole, I got to be laser focused. I think as long as you know what your overarching vision is and what that long-term goal is, then you could see are the different pieces of your life moving in that direction to that overall vision of your life. And if that's the case, then you're in good shape. If it's all over the board, probably need to get more focused on your vision, and then allow your different things you're doing in your life, work on them individually in blocks of time. So I just wanted to share that.
I think that's excellent. Yeah, absolutely excellent. We're getting here to the end of the show here. I know, Joe, you wanted to jump in.
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't want you to think that when I say that multitasking doesn't exist, I mean that it doesn't. You can't do 2 things at the same time.
Exactly.
But you have to do multiple things. So when you're doing what you're doing, you have to be focused. There's a great book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. That lets you really think about how to focus on the things that you're doing so that you can be effective at that. When you're trying to write a proposal and you keep answering the phone all the time and you keep trying to do email while you're writing the proposal, you're going to make a mistake. Write the proposal. It's going to take you 20 minutes to write the proposal, or an hour or 2 hours, or however long it takes you, but it's going to be the best proposal you've ever put out. You're going to write an email, write the email. Don't do 3 other things at the same time. Turn off notifications so you don't get incoming, so you can pay attention to what you're doing. And that's what I'm saying, is when you're doing what you're doing, do that.
I love that.
Well done. Thanks for the
So,
clarification.
so we're at the end here, and I think a couple things we want to hit on. One, if there's any kind of accountability pieces of the puzzle that we've left on the table, let's get them out here, Joe and Mario. But also, this is our post Thanksgiving show, so taking a moment to say what we're thankful for, I think, is appropriate, and we'll wrap things up. And then, of course, where people can find you. I know, Joe, you dropped that link into the chat, and I'll publish that while you guys are going. So, Joe, you want to go first, and I'll let Mario go with our closing comments here.
So I'm thankful for my family, the amazing support that I get from my wife and my kids and everybody. Just has been spectacular, and I'm thankful for my team. My team has just grown and been really magnificent this year, and my health. So those are the things that I see, and our community keeps growing and growing and growing and growing, and that's been really awesome. So those are the things I'm thankful for.
Thanks, Joe. That's awesome. Yeah, when the question was asked, how do you find an accountability partner? After we talked about it, I thought of my wife, who remembers every little thing I've ever said in my life. And so that's kind of like a built-in accountability partner, right? But then I thought of my kids, who it's a natural accountability partner, where every waking moment you think, if I don't do this well enough, I'm failing them, right? And so sometimes you have born naturally part of your life accountability partners too. But I'm very thankful for the ability to work and do work that I love and that I'm passionate about, and to read and to learn and education, all those things. And I think in the end of the day, what you care about is proven in your actions. And so if you care about someone, or you care about results, or you care about something, your actions will match what you care about.
I love that. That was awesome. I'm going to jump in, Steve, and then I'll let you go here. But I really, really relate to the kids' comment here, and was really hit me like a ton of bricks the other day. I want my 13-year-old son, to write a book and be an author. And I was having this conversation with somebody, and they said, well, do you have that desire? Do you want to finish a book? Are you being that example? And so that is holding me more accountable than anything else, right? This idea that I want to be the example for him to follow, really, really critical and key. So thankful for my family. So thankful for you, Steve, for bringing all these great people together, expanding people's network, expanding our knowledge on stuff. Thank you, brother. Steve.
Well, yeah, and right back at you, Cameron. I mean, so in order of priority in my life, I'm thankful for my God. Not to get religious on anyone, very, very important to me. Thankful for my family, for my wife, and thankful for the business relationships, the opportunities I've had in my life, and the partnerships. Right, Cameron, you and I look at, I really value our partnership here. In general, in life, and in general, and here, what we're able to do with the show and some of the other ventures we're embarking on. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to share and have a platform here on LinkedIn where we can actually touch people and really make a difference and impact the world. I'm very grateful and thankful in that. And I did a post, the other day, I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, on, make sure, what are you thankful for? And so it's important to really be thankful, even though, we may not have everything we want, but we look at other people, and we look at other societies and other, places in Africa and parts of South America where, they don't even have like food for tomorrow, and we're great, and we should just be grateful and thankful every day. But yeah, and I'm grateful that I've been able to communicate and connect with so many other people here, and very thankful and grateful of you, Mario and Joe, and all the panelists that have come on our show. Very, very, very grateful of you guys and everyone else that's been on our show, and the viewers that we have, the community we're building. So I just wanted to end it here. I guess, for Cameron, is that what we're doing? We're ending with Crush It. So just let's make sure to be the light. Let's go share the love with everyone, with the world. We're in a season now where it's all about giving. Let's give that light. Let's be that inspiration. Let's be that light to the world, and it'll make a difference. I know Hanukkah is a festival of lights, and we know what Christmas is about. It's about new beginnings and the gift of that. So let's let's go out and be the light for in the next month or so, and just be that to the world here. So let's end it with a countdown to crush it. So ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Crush it.
Crush it. my delayed strain here. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll be back next week with episode number 47. Can you believe it, Steve? It's been amazing. We'll be talking about managing stress for your well-being with Amy Salmon and Jack Irmis. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much for being here. So thankful for you, and we'll see you next time. LinkedIn, we are going to fire up your Monday
with Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
I am Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Over the next hour of this Master Connection series, we will take a deep dive into the different ways to connect and network effectively.
See us and hear us right now. So LinkedIn, we are on here. We're getting ready.
Hear from experts along with Steve Spiro, who went from being shy and introverted to the Master Connector.